Welcome to the Hustle or Bust podcast powered by Paver Art. Our mission is simple: to dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and all the success, struggle, and challenges that need to be confronted in the pursuit of growth. We celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps most important, we want you to learn at least one idea that you can put into action immediately to make your investment in time worthwhile.
Welcome to episode 34 of the Hustle or Bust podcast. There are countless people that sit inside corporate America in big, important jobs. Many of those people dream about owning their own business. However, few will take that shot. Reg Zeller, the CEO of Kast, did exactly that, acquiring his business and then leading it on an inspiring hyper-growth trajectory. He's truly making a dent in the universe, trying to reinvigorate manufacturing in the United States. We hope you enjoyed and drop us a line with some feedback.
Today, we want to welcome Reg Zeller of Kast, a company that owns and operates a series of non-ferrous casting facilities across the United States. And he took the leap from the corporate establishment to being an entrepreneur and a business owner in the foundry market. Reg, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
No, pleasure's all ours. I guess for the folks that are listening to our podcast and who are going to listen to it, how about you give us a quick overview of what a foundry actually is?
That's always the $1 million question when people find out we still do this in the U.S. But simple version is you can have any different number of metals. Our case, non-ferrous, mainly aluminum. Mm-hmm. Non-ferrous is simply without you just have a little bit lighter weight material with aluminum. You just have to melt it to a little less than 1,400 degrees. You take that liquid metal, pour it into a form. Sometimes that is what we'd call a pattern. Sometimes that's what we'd call a die, just depending on the technology. Doesn't really matter. Either way, liquid aluminum poured into a negative impression of a form. You let that liquid metal cool, and you get a finished product. And those finished products we manufacture for other companies. They're on just about everything you look at every day in the physical world. So anything from the stuff that holds up the traffic signals to railroad crossing signs to playground equipment, deer stands, golf ball washers, you kind of name it. It's all foundry made material.
Am I to understand correctly when I did a little bit of a deep dive into your background, and then I started looking into this whole foundry situation, is the bulk of this being done offshore?
Yeah. So in the last 50 years, roughly 80% of foundries in the U.S. have closed. The vast majority of that volume is shifted overseas and or neighboring countries. Yeah, it's a lot of that obviously before automation and just looking like for like on labor. That was really the best place that you could do it from a cost, just pure cost standpoint. And then in the last probably 10 years, certainly now with the COVID acceleration, there's been a lot of folks that have been looking to move castings, generally speaking, or manufacturing, generally speaking, casting certainly for us in specific, back from other markets here to the U.S. as we saw supply chains disrupted and what kind of everybody had to deal with. But yeah, in a general sense, it's certainly the vast majority is still done outside of the country. There's certain places where real high volume, fully automated, doesn't really matter where it comes from. Your cost really isn't in the labor. And that's what we're trying to replicate in some regards, but on a very, very small standpoint, but with a network of facilities where we can provide people kind of a globally competitive product from a price, quality, mix standpoint that makes sense for them, but do it here and deliver faster and locally, et cetera.
It's got to be, Mark and I were talking about this. The backstory that led up to this whatever was the motivation to get you into this particular niche has got to be it's got to be fascinating, because you do come from the large, you come from the corporate establishment, and you decide to get into something that's predominantly being done overseas. That's you got to give us a little bit of the backstory on that.
Can I swear on your podcast?
Sure. Absolutely, 100%.
We're from Jersey. We welcome that.
The simple answer is I had a shitty boss. Well, a few other things probably led to it, but that was probably the last straw, more or less. In reality, it's just I grew up small town, middle America. My buddies are beer truck drivers, or they own an HVAC company, or whatever small business might be, and just never really fit in all that well in corporate America. And the more and more that I dealt with let's say I don't know what you want to call corporate structure, culture, etc., where I spent more time making PowerPoints than making business decisions that mattered. It just kind of got to the point where I was like, all right, I've had enough of this. It's time for me to go try my own thing, and really didn't know what I was doing. You mentioned earlier that you had some SBA loans. Common joke I use is I didn't know how to spell SBA, but the business came up for sale, and it happened to be 20 minutes from where I was living at the time. I didn't really care where I went, but was looking at a nationwide search, trying to figure out, what business was meant. I knew, because I'd worked in 4 different manufacturing companies in corporate America, that I thought we could do what the kids these days are calling a thesis. My investing thesis was I thought we could make a better mousetrap out of U.S. local based manufacturing. And so I just tried to find a business where I could do it with bank debt. Didn't want any more bosses. So cut a check to the bank. They gave me an SBA backed loan. And 4 months after walking into the foundry for the very first time in my life, and I don't mean just that foundry, I mean any foundry in my life, I bought a foundry, and here we are 7 of them later, 7 years and 7 of them later, we're on the path. We'll probably buy another 15 to 25 in the next 3-4 years. And then we'll move on. And after we're done with foundries, we'll go figure out the next vertical we want to roll up, mainly in the small manufacturing space here in the U.S.
They'll all come under the umbrella of Kast. Is that how that's?
So yeah, Kast is going to be the foundry holding company name, just because that last part, that cast, is related to casting. But it'll be the same kind of structure, same thing. So we'll create a parent company over top of Kast as the holding company, and we'll spin up a new entity and buy entities underneath there, and continue down this path. With the intention would be that I take the C-suite that I have now, and everybody needs to find their replacements in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And when we decide to go jump, the vast majority of them will go probably close to 100%, or at least 80, 90%, so that the replacements still have some folks to help. But we've built an enduring portion of that company, and then as we continue to go roll up 3, 4, 5 other verticals, that the idea being ultimately, that's my goal, and our executive team's goal is to create a private, enduring private company that continues to last in the manufacturing space in the U.S.
Did you, Reg, you're going through corporate America, the big Fortune 500 background, you go through the bureaucracy, the bullshit, all that you have to go through, which I can relate to. Did you quit to go on a full-time search, or were you doing it on the side? How did you effectuate the search?
No, I just stumbled across it. I was talking to a few folks, didn't have any idea what I was doing yet. It was really like I'd seen some businesses from brokers, some businesses on Biz Buy Sell, kind of the typical route that a lot of people go, was talking with some lawyers and accountants and those folks. And then this came up and it popped up. It's really bad. I've tried to think through this. I think the first time I saw it was actually on Biz Buy Sell, but I was contacted by the broker almost simultaneously. So I'm not sure exactly where I saw it first, but either way, it was one of those things where it was the first one that interested me enough to get through it. And so I was still working full time to the point where I actually, I acquired the business. It was supposed to be the end of February, technically. Um, how it worked out is my bonus for the prior year got paid out the kind of the first week of March. And we went through phase ones and they were clean, which I was told was no way possible that was going to happen.
Good.
So the sellers came to me and said, "Hey, we really like to spend some time in the Bahamas in the winter. If this is all clean, can we close earlier than the end of March like we talked about?" So it finally had to be like, well, yes, but kind of count on some of that cash probably to close. So we had to have a few interesting conversations where we figured out how to do it without it. And there's some nice fun things with 401ks, IRAs where you can take some money and as long as you pay it back in 60 days or 90 days or whatever it is that you got away. So I was able to take that money, got paid my bonus out. And so actually the first 6 weeks, I wasn't even running the business. I just paid the old owners to run it. And so really it was, no one really knew what it was. And once I saw my bonus hit my bank account, literally the next morning I resigned. And my boss at the time, which was not the bad one that I had, he said, "Hey, is there any reason I can, or I can keep you?" And I'm like, "Well, I've owned a business for 6 weeks, so probably not." So he laughed, and his wife had done something similar. She'd gone out on her own, and so it was nothing but great for him. And he said, "All right, perfect. Let's figure out a couple week transition plan to get all the knowledge out of your head and into some of your peers, and make sure we can still get a hold of you going forward if anybody needs anything." And worked out great.
Did you take that 6 weeks to ramp up the learning curve for the new business that
Uh,
you bought?
yeah, you'd have hoped I could have, but I was busy doing numerous things. So I actually traveled. Of those 6 weeks, I think I traveled two, three of them, maybe four. So
Sure.
that was kind of my game. I was traveling all the time on some of this stuff. And there was an interesting time very late in the process where it was, I knew it was going to be, or I assumed it was going to be done. This was before we actually signed it. And one of my buddies, I kind of suspected that it was going to happen. And it was just one of those just brutal corporate meetings, and I could not pay attention. And there was some of the stuff going on with the deal. And I actually got called out by the head of our group's assistant saying, "Hey, by the way, this isn't great for your career if you continue to not pay attention during these meetings and you're on your phone." And I was like, "Well, you know what? I don't really give a shit anyway. Assuming
You're
this
making
thing
a left
closes
turn
in
anyway.
yeah, in 7 days, I don't give a shit what your opinion is and all your stupidity up on that screen with the PowerPoints. It means absolutely nothing to me." So,
Oh, that's
yeah, we had
great.
some, and then that night, after a few extra cocktails, I told my buddy essentially what was going on. I'm like, "Yeah, here's this thing. Hopefully, this all works out pretty well. But either way, I showed him the text message from the person's assistant or head of HR or whatever it was that sent it, and we got a good chuckle out of that one. But
How
anyway,
did
I've
you?
got a few of those stories in my career.
You mentioned he didn't know how to spell SBA. How was the process for you on the personal guarantee and going through all of that, getting your head around that whole concept?
Yeah, so this is what always scares me. On Twitter, I always try and warn people about this. For me personally, the way I justified it was looking at the data. I'm assuming you guys have heard of the Lindy principle. More or less, what it's saying is that whole Lindy Deli thing, where the likelihood is if it's lasted for 20 years, it's going to last for another 20 years. Short of something catastrophic coming. And then looking at the SBA data, for me, I kind of thought, well, the failure rate, especially for some of these things like manufacturing, exceptionally low. You take out some of the high risk type of deals that are in SBA or higher risk. So like for like, and then I had to put down 15%. The sellers had 10% in. So I kind of looked at it like, all right, this thing has been around since the 40s and 50s, depending on which the place I was buying, depending on which one you want to look at it, whether the machine shop or the foundry that I first bought when they put them together. But yeah, I mean, it'd been around for 70 plus years. The failure rate looked extremely low. 25% of it was already paid. So that didn't help me sleep at night. Don't get me wrong, once I had to start paying the bills, but I just mentally got over that hurdle. And again, going back to if I wouldn't have had that terrible boss where he was threatening to fire me every other day or whatever else it might be, it was always one of those things where on the worst day, as I was going through due diligence and wanted to back out, I always kind of look back like, what's the worst that can happen? I'd much rather do this and go bet on myself than go deal with these folks. And that was I had great bosses for the vast majority of my career. Just happened to run into a bad one towards the end, and so that really was the way I got over my SBA guarantee. And then again, I say that 4 months later, I'm in the fetal position on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday because I think I just burned through, a couple $1,000,000 that my wife and I had worked our entire careers to save. So, it's it's one of the same. But
Well, some of this
mentally,
is how do you define risk? So you got a bad boss and you might be getting more and more miserable in a corporate job. That's risky too, I believe, to your quality of life, isn't it?
this is one of the things I tell people all the time. It, I had to lay off a lot of people in my corporate career, more than I'd prefer to. And, it was one of those people got to be mid 50s with X number of years of experience so they could get early retirement. And I had to walk them into the office and say, hey, here's your great offer from the company. I'm like, well, what if I don't want it? Like, doesn't really matter. You can either sign it or not, but it was a great deal to take it. Bad, and then they had to go find a job. They're mid 50s, kids in college. They don't want to do this or the other side. Yeah, so I kind of saw it bifurcating two ways. One, you either get up into that really high C-suite level in corporate, which those jobs look even more miserable than mine personally. It was just a different version of the same thing that I had. Or the other way is that, if you're the up or out, where if you don't make it into that, then you get kind of put off to the side and it doesn't really matter and they move you ahead for somebody else. So for me, I saw just as much risk, the difference being that I controlled the risk for the most part, short of black swan events or something catastrophic. I controlled the one side and I didn't control the other side. So yeah, to your point, much preferred going down swinging myself and figured, well, I swung a lot in 17 years. The likelihood is that hopefully there's some track record here that means that I'm going to continue to be able to do this. But at the end of the day, I admittedly didn't know for sure, but going back didn't seem like a great idea either.
Yeah, I'll give you credit. You from a speed of decision making were a lot quicker than I was. I was obsessing for 6 weeks. Now I didn't have the miserable. So I was a CMO for a fast growth food company in Memphis, Tennessee. So I had a great job, loved it, loved the people. They were like brothers to me. But I was obsessing on the personal guarantee. My wife finally got me off. She's like, Jesus, you're going to be analyzing this thing for 5 fucking years at the rate you're going. She goes, what's the word? Let's say it goes south. We go bankrupt. Could you go get a CMO job or some high level executive job back if it goes south? I'm like,
yeah,
I guess I could. I still got my resume, right? She goes, then go make it back. I was 39 years old, 40 years old at the time. And so I got to give my wife Kim credit for getting me off the, I wasn't as analytically astute as you were in terms of analyzing the risk of it. I was just, what if it goes bad?
Yeah, my wife, she helped push me out of the nest before then. We talked about it many times, like, well, eventually one of us is going to do it. And she does a much better job with the corporate side and playing politics and playing nice. I tend to wear my feelings on my sleeve. So if I'm annoyed, it's hard for me to let's say hide it anyway. So she was like, "Listen, if there's one of us that's going to do this, it's going to be you. I trust you." And then of course we get to that point where I'm analyzing data and I'm trying to have this conversation with her, like, "Hey, I have to personally guarantee this. Here's all the risks I see in the financials. Here's what I think about it." She's like, I trust your judgment. You're fine." And then she disappeared, pretty much headed out. I'm like, this is not what I needed right now. She's like, "Yeah, I'm busy. I got a new job. I have other things to worry about." I was like, "I get that, but I'm about to go bet seven figures on what we're gonna do." And she's like, "You're fine. You'll figure it out. Get out of here." So yeah, it was kind of the same. So I'm sure her version of how I analyze the PG is a little different than what my version of that is. I'm sure there's a little more hemming and hawing than just these straight. But that's what got me over it finally. How about that?
Right. But now, can Kast are an old manufacturer, but that's I don't believe. Now you've got more experience in the classic, I guess the SMB Twitter, if you want to call it that. Is that a I don't think that's a prototypical type of company in the search world, is it?
No, I mean, literally what we bought is what everybody would tell you the exact opposite to buy.
Right.
So heavy capex, a lot of working capital, really hard to scale and run individually. Yeah, it's literally what not to buy 101 if you talk to searchers. Some of that for me, because I had done corporate M&A, I'd seen kind of how far down private equity had gone into companies. I like this knowing that I wasn't going to have to be competing with those types of folks someday. I admittedly didn't expect to roll it up. I knew what it was. I'd done it before in corporate. I had an idea of what it might take, but it was much more that it developed over time in that I just needed more of certain things, and it was cheaper to buy the next company than it was to buy the equipment. And, suddenly we bought our second one 30 months in, our third one 18 months in, fourth and fifth 12 months and 10 months in, 10 months after that, I mean, and then the last two within 3 months. So of that, so now we decided to expand it. Momentum kind of caught up with us a little bit. And then we haven't done a deal now in about 12 months, which is the longest that it's been for a while. I'm getting itchy. I need a hit, but we walked away from a deal at the end of last year. Just wasn't the right time for either party. I think at some point in time we may go back to it, but there's a lot more that we're doing in the meantime. So, we'll get it done. And I think the big thing is, when I go talk with people running holding companies, although we're totally different than what most people are, 90+% is the same. It doesn't matter whether you're in plumbing or manufacturing or e-commerce. The vast majority of what my holdco CEO group that I'm a part of does, there's like a dozen of us. It's still finance and HR and marketing and sales. And the last 5 or 10% is making sure that you teach someone to pour a mold or turn a wrench or, advertise correctly, et cetera. But it's still running a business at the end of the day.
The development of the roll-up strategy, what did you see there? Why did that become the driver of, I guess, your value creation where you're at?
Yeah. So there's two. I mean, so like I mentioned the first time, it's now obviously evolved over time, but there was the one main driver, which was there was a local place. I needed a certain piece of equipment. I went and priced out the equipment. It was like $1 million for me to buy and install new. I was like, well, that's not going to work. That's, almost half the price of what I paid for the business practically to begin with. And it just doesn't add that much value, even though I was having a problem with this type of equipment because I was having to outsource it. And then, so I started looking around, just thought, well, what are my other options? And started looking at other businesses to say, is there anybody in the area that I could purchase that had that capability? Well, long story short, I ended up paying $226,000 for a business with $1.5 million worth of sales.
Wow.
And also had this equipment as part of it. Now, granted, it was older and needed to be maintained, fixed up, etc. But yeah, so this thing paid for itself many, many times over by buying essentially a failing business, but that had everything I needed. And that was our first tuck-in. We rolled that into our facility. So hired somebody to run the business kind of day to day, the new one we'd acquired. So he learned it over kind of 4 or 5 months, develop a project schedule to pick everything up out of there and combine it into the first shop that we had. And so our first roll up per se, or tuck in this case, became just simply because of that equipment. Then we saw how well that worked, and we realized that really there's a bifurcation of customers, and that customer base looks two ways. There is the corporate type customer, and they like us because we de-risk a lot of their product. So if they're buying 95% of their product overseas, their last 5%, is not consistent typically, or it's real low volume. They'll say, hey, we need to get this in 2 weeks or 6 weeks or something, or it's going to hold up a $10 million project. We're able to deliver. And so they're really happy because they can de-risk, because we can pick up a pattern in our Minneapolis facility, send it down to our Kansas City facility, and still make it. So one, we have backup capacity, and two, or should say excess capacity, and two, we have that backup in case, a fire happens or whatever. So corporate customers love, because we de-risk and they'll just hand us kind of everything they do, knowing, deliver a quality product on time. That's what we mainly care about. The other type of our customer is the local small business folks. And these are the ones that, they came up with the idea, or dad or grandpa or grandma or whomever, and they've been doing this business for who knows how long. But that customer really is more driven by relationship and time to where we are. So they really like it that they can get up, get their kids off to school in the morning, drive in, see us, watch their product actually get made, shake hands, have lunch and a beer, and be back home in time for dinner. And that also allows them, I use that as kind of a little bit of an analogy, but what that also does is that we can then deliver in one day. So in order for you to kind of be within 8 hours, we can pretty much drop ship everything same day. So, if we'd have to, they can get it within a day, or they can drive to our facility and get something, it allows them to be much more efficient, and at the same time build a relationship that, tends to operate, I think, across all small businesses.
Yeah. Let me give you a little premise. What I picked up there, and how I first caught you caught my eye on Twitter. With what you just said there, your first acquisition plus the rationale for the second one, a dirty old machine, you did the economics on it. I believe that I call it entrepreneurial porn, right? In SMB world, where they've got this, it's almost like a derogatory view of it, whether they call it buying yourself a job. You rattled off there 5 minutes of dirt under the nail operating type experience. And I'm going to make up here. You might have bought under the classic criteria of it's got to be $1 million of SDE cash flow. Yeah. You went in there and you started operating. And it's almost like I believe that they're glamorizing this whole space of entrepreneurial through acquisition. It's about operations. It's about doing the work. And 100%. I don't know if any of that hits a nerve with you or not, but I feel like I hate to use it, and not derogatory to MBAs at all, but some of them are making this like a private equity world investment bank, and they're talking so much about a deal game. This is about dirt under the nails, creating value.
Yep. Yeah, it's so I can talk shit about MBAs because I have one, plus the corporate background, I have an engineering back. I mean, you name it, I've got all the ability. Like, I have the pedigree that I can talk shit about anybody. It's totally fine because I am one mainly. Right. But no, you're exactly right. I think that, and I've said this numerous times on Twitter, there's a lot of folks that think that this is a capital allocation game, that this is about buying the best deal and you have a great model and whatever it might be, investment banking. And that's literally, I don't know, 2%, 5% maybe of the whole job. Then, after you actually get through it, well, let's back up a step there. After you build a perfect model, then you have to convince the seller that you're the person that should buy their baby. So you have to build that relationship. And if you're going to walk in with a fancy suit into a place like a foundry, good luck. It's not going to work out exceptionally well for you. But it's happened a few times already. I've had folks that I've had talked to these owners. I told you, I don't know how many we'll end up doing, 15, 25, whatever the number is. But I'll have old foundry owners or current foundry owners that are, 55, 65, 70, whatever. And I'll inevitably get a phone call. People can kind of do the math. Like, all right, Reg is buying these things every 500 miles, and they'll try and get in front of me, either brokers or other folks. And like, yeah, this guy showed up in a suit today, said he saw you on this tweeter thing or something, and now he wants to buy my business. But you and I both know that's never going to work. So yeah, it's not the model, and that is the least important part of this. It's, I spent a lot of Saturdays, Sundays, Tuesday nights, etc., missing events and whatnot the first few years. And, now we're in obviously a little bit different animal. We have an entire executive team, and I've been able to design the exact job I want. And thankfully, I found Josh Schultz, who he's a much better operator day to day than I am. But what he loves to do is the exact opposite of what I love to do, and vice versa. So, we're able to build something, and now we're building a team. And that I fundamentally believe that you can, the best way to hire people is to find people that they have the exact job they always want. So, I hear a lot of people like, oh, I'm gonna go hire someone that as my president that really wants to buy a company. I'm like, well, that's just, in my opinion, sort of stupid. I want to go buy, or I'm going to go find the best people and pay them that their greatest job is exactly the job you have for them. So I want to overpay for our chief technology officer that knows that he wants to be the technical person, or, Josh, I want him to love to do the president and COO role so that I can go do acquisitions. And I think that's I don't know, 1% of the people in small business that get there. It's never the folks that see it as a searcher at the beginning and think that's how they're going to handle it. And like, well, enjoy when your sewer blows up on a Saturday and you're supposed to be going to your buddy's birthday party. It's going to be fun. It'll happen because I've done it numerous times. So that's not, you don't account for that in your model, I don't think.
No. Well, you've got, Reg, it looks like, I mean, your track record speaks for itself. And the success of that track record, it implies, to me, it implies some sort of, you've got some sort of magic potion for team building. Now, I put that out there to tease
you're baiting
bit,
me.
but I'm exactly, that's true. But you got to, in my mind, it's pretty damn impressive. I mean, what would you, and by the way, to do what you do, to get the synergistic effect across the board of 7 companies that are under your, Kast is just, I think that's remarkable. What can you tell us in regards to, like, say, the top 2 attributes from the team building aspect that you think are really, really important, that gets everybody playing together nicely? How do you do that?
So slightly before that, I will say the reason why that we have 7 companies operating is because we hired the right people that actually know how to do this.
Right.
Josh will tell you he stepped in a little more than a year ago into an absolute dumpster fire and has had to rip apart everything that I pretty much put together. So it's fine. But yeah, it's certainly not me in this, but it is definitely,
well, he's part of
learning
the
to hire. Yeah, exactly. It's better to figure out how to hire these folks. And that, the easiest way is that I screwed up a lot in corporate, and on someone else's dime, it's a great way to do it, so you don't do it to yourself, or with your own money. But I think the big thing that I personally do, and everybody has to figure out what is different for them. My way is that I love selling the vision of what we're doing, and for me, it can't be about the money. Certainly, we need to enrich everybody, and I kind of make that obvious. If I'm going to get rich, my entire team is going to get rich, but that drives very far down into our organization, such that if you have somebody who went to jail and made some bad decisions in the beginning of their career or early in their life, and they come out 10 years later and they want to come and work for us, we figure out for people that want to work hard how they're going to make $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. That's something I'm really, so that's part of the vision. And to me, that's what I want to sell to folks. Like, it's ultimately, I want to go make a dent in the universe. Like I mentioned before, I want US based manufacturing and all the companies that we do to continue to be driving towards that. And so one, I think it's selling that vision. In my case, I think everybody's got to, like I mentioned, what they got to figure out. And then 2, it's about getting people together and building that team camaraderie in the atmosphere. I honestly don't know how people do this remotely. I mean, we have a remote team, but we get people together. Last night in Minneapolis, we were practically in a blizzard, and the team was out at Topgolf. Our C-suite was doing that. Or we go places, we get to do, like, I believe it's one-on-one, coffee, beers, good time, away from the work, having fun. You build that, but you hire great people that really want to do a job, sell them a vision, and you build kind of that camaraderie, and you just throw everybody on the bus and figure out how to change the wheels as you're going down the road as fast as possible. So I don't think it's anything there's a lot of tools to do it. I haven't figured out quite yet how to have a tool replicate, asking the questions and getting people to do their jobs and selling them on the vision, and then just saying, hey, yeah, this works. You want to come and work hard and have fun? I love it. And beyond that, I think it. I don't think it'd be too formulaic. It's human nature, I think, in a lot of regards. Once you can get highly talented people with a lot of runway.
Well, how did you do the
Popcorn,
selection? How did you find
popcorn
Josh?
kernels.
Josh is through Twitter.
Really?
People's one of the people's favorite stories. He and I were. You mentioned before, there's not a lot of folks doing manufacturing on SMB Twitter, rolling it up. So, that was Josh and I. We were randomly talking about it. The old president of our company had decided to leave. I called him up and said, "Hey, I know that you'd sold your family's company. You've worked for a few folks. You'd mentioned publicly that you're kind of done with any type of working for somebody else or trying to be a consultant. That really wasn't what you wanted to do." And so once I figured out, we had a conversation probably, and I was actually driving down from our New Hampshire acquisition to go pick up parts at a company that we were working with. So I just called him on the way, and it was one of those things how we set it up initially. It started out really well, where he's like, "Yeah, I don't really like scheduling meetings, so let's just pick like a rough day and ping me, and if I'm not available, I'll ping you back, and if it takes like a week and we haven't done it, then we'll actually schedule a meeting." I was like, "Oh, bro, you and I are copacetic already. Like I hate meetings. I hate PowerPoints. Anything else even worse." So yeah, we just randomly jumped on a call. I was driving down to grab parts and bring them back to the foundry we'd purchased. And so we just chatted about it. And he said, "Yeah, I don't really want to buy my company. I don't want to be the CEO. I really want to operate it. But nobody that says you can go operate and do your own thing actually lets you do it once it comes to the rubber meets the road." And so I was like, "Okay, well, I just wanted to talk with you about it." So we just started chatting a little more, and he's like, it's kind of different, but if we've got this where if I could get to a point, maybe 18 months, I think I could really redo your entire like president, COO type role, and then you could just hand it off to your director of ops at that point in time. That might work out. But he's like, "But if I do that for you, then I would really want to have like 6 months where you teach me how to buy a business." And I was like, "I thought you just told me you didn't want to buy a business. You just wanted to operate yourself." He's like, "I didn't want to buy a business. I don't want to buy a business. It's like the most miserable thing I can imagine." He's like, "But nobody will give me the autonomy to run it." And I was like, "I have a way, way, way better fucking idea. Like, you can run it. I won't even talk to you if you don't want me to. Like, it's your baby." Like, so yeah, we chatted, and a couple of weeks later, he flew up to Minneapolis. Uh, had some of that camaraderie relationship building over a few days. Sent him home in a little bit of rough shape. And a week later, he was an employee of ours, and now he's my business partner and just absolutely crushing it. So it's kind of the same thing. We quickly aligned, and it just became. I'm a big believer it has to be face to face. Like, all right, come up here. I want to hear from you. You see what's going on. I'm going to tell you every single terrible thing about this job. If at the end of it you still want to run through a brick wall, then we'll be good. And so I sent him home to go. I'm like, "All right, chat with your wife and see if you really want to do this from Austin, Texas, when we're spread all over the country." And they took the leap and they love it, and or I think they love it. And it's been great for us so far.
Besides that small business, local relationships, really small business customer service aspect of it, how do you, how do you sell the value of your product? Because that's got to be a big part of that. And value, there's all kinds of things wrapped up in value, and I understand that can get fairly complex. But you're going up against larger companies for the same products, I would imagine. The local sales to the local regional folks, obviously local to that particular foundry is one thing. Obviously, that relationship is already there. But if you're going after a national contract or a government job or something along those lines, how do you acquire that? How do you sell the value in what it is that you're doing to kind of take price away from the top, top mark?
Yeah, so it's the easy way for us is that we got arguably far more supply than we have, or far more demand than we have supply.
Ah,
But for us, we are very, very selective about the types of customers that we want to work with. We know who's going to understand the value, and that value is going to be quality product delivered on time, and we will jump over backwards, whatever we need to do. It's really simple, and it's pasted all over every one of our facilities that I want every single person in the company to make decisions in order of these five things. And one, it's health and safety of employees. Two, it's taking care of the customers. Three, it's making a quality product. Four, it's delivering that quality product on time. And five is cash. And literally, if they just simply go down that exact order, those five, everything else just sort of takes care of itself. So we're not putting an employee at risk, but a customer, the phone rings, answer the phone call, answer the email. If you look at something, customer wants something Thursday, but we've found something Wednesday that there's been wrong with it. We're going to do whatever it takes, but we're going to get a hold of them right away and tell them, hey, there's a quality issue here. I'm not going to ship a bad product on time. And that's just, we built our reputation on that. And that is now spread. We still have not done a bit of marketing and sales in the history since I've owned it. It's all been word of mouth from casting buyer to casting buyer or company to company or whatever it might be. But, it's in a lot of small business. I tell people, especially when they come from big corporations, competing in small business is not that hard. It's mainly pick up the phone, do what you say you're going to do, actually take care of problems, admit when you're wrong, do right by
good
that
point.
customer.
Yep.
Things just sort of, this is not like, I'm not competing against the Amazons of the world or whatever. You got to just do the basic stuff. And I've never had a problem so far. We've never had a problem. But we also don't go after some of the things you mentioned. So, we don't do huge government contracts that everybody wants to be, part of. We don't do big car companies. We don't do airplane. If something that we make fails and a plane falls out of the sky or a car crashes, I don't need that on my conscience. We're not going to do that. And so we're very, very selective in what business we do. And then, we don't actually compete against large foundries for the most part, just because the larger you get, the larger the runs you want. And at that point in time, they really compete with the overseas shops. We compete with other small foundries because, customer might want 5 or 50 or 500 of something. Minimum run at some of these foundries might be 10,000 or 50,000 or 500,000. So, it's just all about making sure that we understand what customer makes sense to us and then providing that value specifically to what that customer needs. And then ultimately, I think the key that a lot of folks don't understand, especially when they've been in the industry forever, is then extracting that same amount of value, because you have to be able to make money to continue to invest and make these enduring companies continue to last. You can't run a charity at the end of the day. You have to understand the value you provide. And if that customer doesn't line up with the value, then you have to go find another customer. So
Sounds
it's
like
hard for people to realize.
sounds like a pretty good formula for a strong margin business. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we do substantially better than normal. Partly because we've implemented a lot of processes, systems, et cetera. And I say I mean Josh and team. I probably couldn't run my company right now if I had to, which is good and bad. It makes the company, if I get hit by a bus or anything else happens, the company continues to operate as is, and that's the exact same for every other single person. We eliminate all key personnel as fast as possible. Everybody is required to have the person that can replace them essentially immediately or within kind of 3 to 6 months, and then a second person that can replace them within 1 to 3 years before they can get promoted and move on. So that's an active part of what we develop in our company. And then, on the other side, these guys have developed, great tools. We don't run the simple tools. We're running mid-market ERPs. We're running all kinds of no-code tools. And we've got stuff where the goal will be that we're going to be able to close our books within 5 days. So it takes us 4 days to collect the information, takes a half a day to make sure that everything is put into the system correctly, and the books close automatically. So Those are teams we're running with in Mexico and the Philippines, combined with a lot of no-code tools in the background. And so that allows us to do a lot of things, be more efficient, get more product out, be more accurate. And when we say we're going to get the product out, ensure that something hasn't happened. And if something has happened with our equipment, we can kind of peer into the future or say, hey, this, ultimately we're supposed to run 250 of these things. Why did you guys run 175 yesterday? And then that automatically gets loaded, and the plant manager see that, and the plant manager will know that before they come in at 6 a.m. the next day that something happened without anybody intervening in that system. And then the weekly meeting, they have to go in there and explain what happened. They write it up in Confluence, close it out in ClickUp, and then whatever happened, that becomes metadata for our entire team that they can search and find out. Might have been, who knows, a seal was starting to go out, or they saw a bad part of a product because metal was prepared wrong, or we got bad metal. And so we always are asking all the way back to that beginning. And then we have, kind of our own internal wiki that people can start to search when they see things. And hopefully we take all that tribal knowledge and it's readily available, searchable, easy to solve, et cetera, so that, we don't need to have key personnel. We can have, wide open tools and have a much more dynamic organization that lasts without any individual per se.
I like the whole idea that you can turn on a dime.
You rattled off though, but what you rattled off there, Reg, was like a playbook. The one thing that resonated there is I guess you were talking about key man risk. As you acquire a foundry somewhere in the country, you want a backup for the key person. I'm assuming you're not buying the business with that already in place, are you?
No, that's the number one reason why it's so hard to buy these small manufacturers. And that's literally why we've had to create our own training organization, essentially. And the great part about it is, so the big foundries are not, again, our competition for this. Big foundries need specialists, right? If you're Tesla building a die cast rear end for a car, you have 10 specialists working on that. We would need one person that knows every single aspect of a foundry wing to wing. And so we have to go develop all of that cross training, all those people. We have multiple facilities we can move it around to. So yeah, when we buy a foundry in another location, most likely the owner is going to be key personnel somehow in that, which whatever that might be, we can replace them almost overnight with the systems and processes that we have. The likelihood is that ours are as good, if not better, just because we know we're running in other places. And then from a knowledge standpoint, a lot of times just the nature of these specific foundries, but manufacturing in general, a lot of folks, it was grandpa came back from the war in the 40s, dad, or probably mom or dad took it over in the 60s, 70s. Sons and daughters took it over in the 80s, 90s, and just absolutely had their brains beat in by people going overseas. The ones that did survive, now their grandkids want absolutely nothing to do with it. They're lawyers, doctors, computer programmers, et cetera. And so we've had to rebuild all of this, both as a science and an artist, if you will. It's a craftsman a lot of times, and we try and rip as much of that craftsman out and try and make it as much science that we can replicate as possible, but we can't do all that. So we try and replace that with knowledge and pieces. And I think that we'll see that change and improve over time as we replicate, because, we walk in and as soon as we purchase it, we can helicopter somebody in to solve just about any problem. So we'll keep those key personnel on as long as we can, and we'll want to take as much of the knowledge out of their head, mainly the GMs or, the supervisors or whoever the key people are. And a lot of times these are really hard blue collar jobs. So we'll pay them whatever they want to stay on, 3 months, 6 months, and we'll just go send people there to learn the jobs, document everything we have, make sure we get the relationships and the customers and the nuances of running this product that they've probably been seeing for 30 years or something, and continue to go over time. So, that gives us an advantage over, what no one else can do. And then the nice is that, once we get these key people and we move them around, we've got that network effect where we can pay for specialists that just our competitors can't.
Well, I think that you're hitting. I think if you remove cane cast from the industry, Are the majority of these foundries, are they not sellable, you think, in mass, or because of this key man risk issue? Or
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And even when I started 7 years ago compared to today, I'm not saying all of them aren't, but 80% of foundries gone out of business in the last 50 years. I could see another 20, 30, 50% going out in the next 5 to 10 years just because there's not the people, there's not the size, or they had a piece of real estate and everything grew around them, and now the real estate's worth more than the business as a whole is. So there's a lot of different reasons why some of this happens. But then yeah, and that allows us, we're not one of one buying per se, but we're pretty close. But yeah, then we can do things that other folks can't. Um, yeah, we can buy something with customer concentration risk. We can buy something with key man risk. We can buy things with a lot of risks for, an individual, for instance, wouldn't be able to take on because the bank probably wouldn't underwrite it.
sure.
And for us, it just fits in the portfolio. So, that's certainly the network advantage that we've had here. And that's a lot of what we look for. For us, it's the one thing I won't give away as to how we look for what we buy. It We'll know though, kind of say, give me 5, 6 numbers about a foundry in a 10-minute tour, and I'll tell you whether or not we're going to buy it, what we'll pay for it, and what we're going to be able to do with it, almost that quickly. So, but then we know there's some things we're like, yep, we can't buy that one because of this, or we don't want to, or there's some reasons we want to. And then we know, it's a playbook. And once we get all of our systems in place, we're hoping to get people on board and running our systems kind of with our processes within 3 months, with the idea being we can start to acquire 3 or 4 of these things per year without a problem and integrate it with the existing team.
Well, let me ask this, because going back to this entrepreneurship through acquisition,
Yeah.
You've got a clear general management background, right? Is that a fair summary of your background? Big corporate general management background?
I've done a lot of, I've done about every role imaginable in corporate America. Sure.
If you came, because I see it, there seems to be, one guy was just talking about, the private equity / investment banker people getting into the ETA. They want to get into that world.
Yeah.
I don't believe they're doing a roll-up strategy. Like what you're rattling off is hardcore business management experience. I don't know if they're well positioned for that.
Well, I think it's certainly a lot harder. I mean, again, I'm 7 years in. I'm not going to say I knew this coming in. I would honestly say it was probably harder for me to run the company the first, I shouldn't say probably. It definitely was harder for me to run the company the first 18 to 24 months than it is 7 years in. So that's part of it. And, I certainly know folks that have come from banking backgrounds that can do it. It's still really hard. There's just no frame of reference. For me, I've seen a ton of manufacturing problems. I've seen what you need to do with product managers. I've seen how to manage sales teams, how to develop teams or people, or what it's like to have a superstar in your team and how you manage that, how you become a manager of managers. So I think there's a lot of stuff that is certainly a shortcut and easier, but for everyone like me, there's also the Michael Dells of the world that just stumbled and was like, I was too dumb to know any better, right? So, I'm not naturally that talented. It's just that I had a lot of training, and now it's just how do we take all the pieces from corporate that were good and shed all the stuff that was bad. Make sure that we're efficient enough to do it. But yeah, it's hard to go from sitting in I shouldn't say it's hard. I grew up in a small town, so understood the work part. That wasn't the problem that I knew I was going back to, but going back from the fancy suits and Excel models and whatnot to, working through Saturday evenings because a piece of equipment broke or the sewer backed up. Just if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and get it done and ask questions, especially like on this SMB Twitter thing, there's a ton of people out there that can help. But yeah, if you come in, I think with a mentality that you've got a better mousetrap because you can create a better Excel model, it's probably going to be a real struggle. It's going to be a real issue, at least in the size businesses I'm buying. I don't know. If you go get financial backing and buy a $10 million EBITDA business, yeah, probably a whole different animal, but that's not what I'm, that's not my area of expertise
Yeah,
that I'm buying
yeah,
currently.
then you're in the big private equity world. They
Yeah.
they've got the gold, they make the rules. You might be a CEO, but you're a hired gun at that point.
Yeah. And I'd rather be the, I'd rather be the other way. I'd rather be a small pond, roll it up, do it our way. I've said this a lot. I refuse to take outside money. Um, I'd rather grow slow. We know our playbook. I literally tell people on Twitter every day, just like I told most of it on the podcast today. Um, if you want to go up against us, hey, I think we've created moats that are next to impossible to breach. I prefer if people go buy and put a bunch of brand new equipment in, and I can buy them for pennies on the dollar. I'm totally fine with that as well. But yeah,
Sure.
it's it's I think one of those things where you gotta get your hands dirty, and then once you figure it out, it's a humbling experience at a minimum, as you guys can well attest to, I'm sure.
There's no doubt.
What was your, if you don't mind me asking, what was your first big win? Now I ask this question every once in a while when we're doing an interview. What would you
Yeah.
consider your first big win? Big win being defined as that moment when you said, you know what, this shit's going to work, and I'm ready to go forward. I'm ready to make. I'm ready. You may have already made a
Yeah.
commitment in your own head, but you needed
Yeah.
something. Look, I mean, we we starved around here for the first couple of years, okay, and
Yeah.
we didn't have any competition. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you got to meet payroll, you got to pay your
Yeah.
suppliers, you got to pay the rent. What was the first big win that kind of got you to the point where you said, you know what, I made the right decision to do this?
Yeah. It's funny. I think I can logic my way through this, but it's easy for me to rattle off all the losses because good God, you remember them a lot better. Um,
Oh yeah, for
the
sure.
the I think we started to get traction late in the first year. We were starting to see some good things. It was kind of those like everything seemed to be like two steps forward, one step back. We lost at that time some key people that were difficult, I would say, that weren't great culture fits. And so that second year, we started to get other folks on board. We started to get customers interested. And then if I mean, legitimately, when I think it all happened, the first year we were doing some things wrong with our financials, and I thought things were going absolutely spectacularly until we lost $200,000 in December when we realized we weren't accounting for stuff right, which unfortunately made sense in my head. So that was just absolutely brutal. But then the second year, like I was just holding my breath the entire time. Like, okay, what did we screw up that when we actually go to close the books, like it can't be as good as what we think it is right now. We'll see. But yeah, it ended up being that some people left, some customers started coming in, the culture started getting better, and then when we finally closed the books on year two, which would have been 23 months in technically for me, like it was good, and I finally got to see it. I was like, okay, all the really miserable hard work is starting to pay off. We're seeing it now, not just in what the culture feels like and the customers are saying and whatever else, but there's a lot of money in the bank suddenly, and things are starting to really go in a positive direction, and you can see it. And that's when we went and figured out the equipment that we needed to buy to do the first tuck in, and we kind of see the writing on the wall, like, okay, if we can go pull this off, which is going to be really hard in the next 12 months after that, there was something really there. We could kind of do the pro forma math and say, yeah, if we can do this, this is going to essentially within 2.5 years of buying it, we'll have more than tripled profits. And so that was a nice piece that made me realize, and then also the nice thing is when you look down and you're like, oh wow, that's all mine too. Like that
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 helps.
that 98% of that is not going back to the company and the money that I made. So hey, that's a nice touch. So so it was nice seeing that. And then the last piece was the full realization, like, oh right, yeah, that's my money to go do with whatever I want now. So
And you've
yeah,
got to be
good.
you're
Then went about
plowing
2
back.
years.
the free cash flow you're plowing back into these businesses when you're acquiring them. It sounds like you're not just buying them and milking it. You're upgrading equipment, the key man risk. You're dealing with all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So our model that I've told people what I've done is that we bought the first business. We've lived, I mean, I've taken the IRS mandated minimum essentially as a general manager of a shop out. And then my wife has had money. Everything else we've literally plowed back into the organization. And so my mentality is that, I kind of think of a third, a third, a third in these businesses. And now with rate increases, it's not quite that, but the mentality was a third is going to be used for maintenance, whatever it might be, just upgrades, the general stuff. A third was going to be used to pay the bank back, and a third was going to be used for my salary. And then how that worked out then is every time after that, my thought was we buy a next one, and instead of increasing my salary by that last third, that goes to hire another C-suite person such that I could build a full organization, that can run $100 million company. And so that's always been my goal as we buy is each one. We didn't quite do it with the tuck-ins. That's a little different story, although tuck-ins end up making more probably than the platform investments. But yeah, for us then, so every time we buy one, we just know we're going to hire another key person. So that'd be a president, chief operating officer, director of ops, chief technical officer, whatever it might be. I just know I'm building the team out, and then we're paying ahead. So and then it's not worked out that we need a full third of any of those three buckets typically. So then all that excess becomes excess cash flow. And that excess cash flow is what funds the business. And now, we're at the point where our debt service is, not nothing, but also not overly concerning. So, we're able to utilize the cash. So it was just the initial cash that I put down into the business, that initial 15% of the initial purchase price. And that's the extent of the money we're put in. Everything else is just, we continue to compound and invest in the businesses. And, some of that is investing in equipment. And most of that, though, up until now has been investing in other businesses. So we're finally at the point now where our organic and our inorganic growth are probably switching. So up until now, it's been, I can go buy one more facility and really make a sizable mark on the organization. It's not really the case anymore. Now it's the team's ability to grow it organically makes a bigger dent in the organization. So I'm becoming less and less important by the day, and I love it.
So you find your first, you're in corporate America, you found was a $2 million revenue business, right? That you bought?
Yeah, 2.7 roughly.
Did you think you can get it to 100 million? The vision that you have now? Or it evolved as you got into it?
No, yeah. No way. Absolutely not. All I could think of, honestly, was like, if I can buy this $2.7 million business and just grow it a little bit, and all I can do is pay off all these loans, which was like 11 years between the 7A with the real estate and that. Like, I'm like, I can just live on half of that the rest of my life. Everything will be fine. And then after the first 18 months, like any job in corporate, I started to get a little twitchy, and now it's just off at the races. So, it was just one and then another, and now we've developed the playbook that works. And so, the 100 million is just the first set of roll ups that we'll do when we go find the next ones. I mean, it's insane for me to think. We did some math last year. There's this thing that my buddies put on called Holdco Conference. And so it's just a collection of 100 people plus that own 2, 3, 4 businesses, or own one and want to get into that, or there's a few investors and other folks running around there as well. But, and we were on the plane coming in, and the guy was sitting there just penciling it out. And he's like, look, he's like, this one here, he's like, you're going to do 100 million in sales, did the math. Like, hey, that's a lot of money that thing is going to sell for. I'm like, why after building this over, 10 years, getting exactly what I wanted, would ever sell it? Like, I'm going to go do the next one. And then he's like, well, that next one is going to be worth at least that too. And he's like, how many did you plan on doing? I was like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6. Depends on when the team gets sick of doing this stuff, I suppose, or when I don't want to do it anymore. Like, it's just going to turn into an enduring private company inside of a trust. And he just laid out the map, and it just kind of blew my mind. And that was, 9 months ago. Like that makes absolutely no sense to me right there. But it the best thing I could tell most people is just try not to think about that. It's more fun to some future. I love doing the day to day of the business now. It's more fun that way, and we're already far more successful than I always or than I ever thought we could be. But I always caution at the same time that it's small business. You know, talk to me in 30 years. I'll let you know whether or not we're actually successful or not. Because right now we're in the early innings of this thing, and it could still easily blow up in our face if we do something wrong in the meantime. So
Well, you're the
stick to what we know.
if you're not the 100% guy, you're a majority owner in the place, right?
I own 100%.
So
Yeah.
there you go. So if you're raising a fund, if you're one of these hotshot MBAs raising a traditional search fund, maybe they've got 25%. They are not running for 15 years trying to build an enduring thing that can let. They're not doing
Yeah.
it in that model. They're just not doing it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, our stated goal right now, not because I care about the money, it's just easier to track via the money. Again, like I said, what we really care about is making a dent, a legacy in small manufacturing in the US. But if we don't go build $1 billion company right now, we've screwed something up. I mean, legitimately. And then I'm not saying that's not in 20 or 30 years. I certainly won't be at the helm or even probably even remotely active. But I mean, that has to be kind of that thing. And then I think, and for me, there's part of that. It sounds a little bit insane when I talk to people about it, but if you do a few of these roll ups, I mean, we know what the number is. And I would just like to see somebody. And my wife and I don't have kids. That's why I said it's going into a trust, and my C-suite's going to inherit all this, or at least their kids are. And we'll figure out how to make sure we protect the assets such they can get excess profits, but they're not going to be able to tear the company apart. With the goal of running manufacturing. And I think over time, it'd be interesting to say that there's a unicorn that started in, small manufacturing in the U.S. in this like SBA search, whatever. That wasn't just be interesting to say. Are we going to get there? I have no idea, but it's such a massively huge number that I can't even wrap my head around that it'll keep us really busy for a long, long time. And, we won't go do dumb things like buy planes. Like I keep telling my president, we need to do. And he's like, yeah, we're not doing that until you reach our number. So it'll be great. I'll be long. I think he's just doing that so that he knows I'll be long out of the business and I'll forget about it by then. So
Well, look,
it makes it easy that way.
The fact that it's U.S. made, you're making manufacturing sexy, and I think you mentioned it early in it. The people that are inside these foundries, if you can get them to 100 grand, that's a hell of a goal right there.
I mean, my God.
Who'd have thought about U.S. foundry, which I've never been in one, but I've been in a lot of manufacturing plants all across the country. I can imagine what they look like, and $100,000 is not normal in those plants. I can imagine, right?
Yeah, no, very, very much not. But that's kind of the code that we've cracked a little bit with it as well, where we can go say, hey, we may charge a premium, but we deliver a better product faster on time, do what we say we're going to do. And part of that premium, though, a lot of times gets rolled back into our people. And then if they do the bare minimum, they'll make probably slightly below market what they could do in any other foundry. But if they do what we ask them to do, they output more, they find novel ways to do things, they share in the upside, and then they can make a whole lot more. And they realize that's a team game. So then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They go find their other friends that they know are willing to work hard to do all these things and want to make money. And then the people that don't want to work hard, they go find our way to our competition. So we get to gift wrap bad employees, and we tend to collect the best employees in any city you go into. So.
Well, you solve that problem. Solve the hiring problem for doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we solve the hiring problem, but it takes a long time. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that Josh and I connected on very, very early. The two things were, U.S. based manufacturing, really figuring out how to make a dent in manufacturing, period, and then making sure that this trickles down. Making sure we're taking care, and it's life changing. It's not multi-generational, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. I certainly understand that, but for people that are immigrants or folks that made mistakes or people that are really willing to work hard, whatever it might be, that changes a lot of things for them and their families. And we already have thousands or tens of thousands of people probably that when we pay, that goes, from all their extended family and wherever else they send that. We're not in the tens of thousands of people yet. We will be. And that weighs heavily on me. It's just one of the things. And I make sure my executive team thinks the same thing, that, it's that's part of the reason why Josh and I got together. It's, where I grew up, where I started with, and, literally how I got my start technically. I mean, my dad's a teacher, my mom's a hairdresser. So I didn't come from anything. I had no idea. And, that's the same thing I want to make sure we do in these organizations too.
Well, that type of affirmation trickles down, and I can tell you from personal experience that, and you're right, the ones that get it, they're going to go through a life-changing experience, not just from a payroll standpoint, but from a productivity standpoint. And the ones that don't, I loved what you said. We're going to gift wrap them and give them to our competition. That's great. That's fantastic. But you know what? In a roundabout way, you answered part of the question about the whole team building aspect that you find so important. That's pretty cool. That's very, very cool, actually.
Well, I guess because we've been going here for about an hour and 15, Reg. What is when you look at your battle scars, your big corporate background, your small business acquisition, what part in thoughts or words of wisdom would you have, either for aspiring entrepreneurs or people younger in their career? So what comes to mind that you can share with people that you would guide people on?
I'll take it two ways. It's really easy. If you want to succeed in corporate America, make your boss's job easy, your boss's job easy. Don't let them spend political capital, and if you do, make sure you're doing it for the right reason. If there's stupid corporate rules and you're just doing the right thing, that's fine. That's their job to solve those things. But if you're thinking about doing this, first of all, make sure you're really clear. But the absolute number one advice I can ever give anyone is to get a peer group. It's not even close. I don't even think there's anywhere in a ballpark of, you go find, a handful of people that are about your time. If you're just starting to look, great. Find other people that are just starting to look. The likelihood, unfortunately, is that a lot of the people that look never buy. So if you're going to buy, try and weed that out and get to the point where ultimately you're going through LOI process when other people are going through it. And then you bought it when other people, and then, if you're within 3 to 6 months, you're going to go through almost identical same things. I just mentioned before, holding company. I have a group of a dozen of us that are just like that. But yeah, when I first started talking about within the first 18 months, it's miserable. You're going to be, fetal position on your bathroom floor. I can't tell you the number of people that are like, oh my God, I know exactly what that's like after signing a personal guarantee, but no one was talking about that. And
sure.
And then all of a sudden you get a peer group and everybody's like, yeah, I feel that same way. Or, they get something that works and they help you, or, you're there. You don't want to bring that home to your families and your spouse. And as much as I can tell you that your friends really give a shit about your balance sheet or what a cash flow is or what's going on with your working capital, they don't at all. So it's great to have peer groups because they do care about that. That's all they think about. You guys can talk about that amongst yourselves, and then give your families a break. And then it's just really about scheduling time. It's you got to take time away. Small business can be all consuming all the time if you let it, but it'll be there the next day. It's not life or death. If things do completely go to hell, which pretty unlikely, but when they do, you still want to have family and friends and everybody else, and they're still going to love you. And if you file for bankruptcy, it won't matter. You get back up and either go be a CMO or go raise a fund and do your own business again or whatever. But yeah, if you don't have, and then the other thing on top of, I guess, just the peer group I was mentioning is just get a mentor that's 5 years ahead and a mentor that's like 20 years ahead, because the things that I know at 7 years in that I worried about 7 months in is, that's a random Tuesday. I don't even think about it anymore. And then I'm sure I'm going to say the same thing in 20 years. The things that I think about now after I'm nearing the end of this, I wouldn't even remotely care about. So I think it's been great to have the peer group plus the mentors that are kind of 5 years and 20 years ahead type timeline. Just makes everything infinitely easier. And if you're not doing that, go do it. It doesn't matter. If you're 5 years in and you don't have a peer group, go find a peer group. Right. It's the easiest cheat code. It is absolutely a cheat code to figure out how to make small business work.
Interesting. Well, we'll get back in touch with you in 13 years and replay this podcast for you.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to sound like I'll be completely embarrassed. I said all the wrong things, did all the wrong things. I burned it all up. I mean, I get it, but
That's what
I do.
growth is about.
Anytime I talk about this, I laugh about it. I'm like, hey, it's what I think at this current time. I'm old enough now that I'll probably be embarrassed about some of the things I didn't know, but at the same time, it is what it is. And this is what it was at 43.
I don't, somehow
yes.
or another, I just don't see you I don't see you getting embarrassed. So
who knows? Anything's possible. You never know.
Well, look, you are on an inspiring journey. So I would love to have you back on maybe in a year, and then we kind of revisit how things are going here.
Happy to. Yeah, happy to. Hopefully by then we're off and running. And I have a goal in my head in the next 18 months that I want to double this business. So we'll see. I'm not sure what my team is going to think about that, but and the economy needs to probably cooperate a little bit too. But it'll be we're finally at the place where I think we've gone through all the hard work. We've done a lot of the stuff where I tell everybody, going from 1 million to 3, you're going to break everything. 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 50. Every single one of those steps you break, literally everything. And we finally got it now where I feel like we're at that runway where we can scale this thing to 50 and $100 million pretty easily. It's just now we got to go do the work. So that's my exciting time right now. Like, all right, guys, we've put in the hard work to get here. Now it's the execution to go buy stuff and grow it. That's my favorite time of the business. Because once we break it again, then I know we've done a lot of good work to break it. So I always look forward to the breaking right up until like day 2. I'm like, oh boy, this sucks. So
put together a PowerPoint for your team. There you go.
yeah, that'll. This is a running joke. Like it is. Everybody in my team knows I don't have PowerPoint on my. I've clicked on it like twice accidentally, and I still have to input my initials. So that's so many times. It's quite literally never been opened in the 7 years that I've owned this place, and it never will be. So if people want to send me something, PDF. I'm not opening a PowerPoint. So.
So your style is at Topgolf. You take the cocktail napkin, you scribble it out, and you pass it around to the C-suite. That's what you do.
Oh yeah. Exactly. Cocktail napkins and whiteboards. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. I'm totally fine. If you have to put something up behind me when I do presentations or whatever, I'm like, I don't put a picture of like a foundry back there. If people are looking at the picture or the words and not paying attention to what I'm saying, I've already lost the battle. So ignore whatever's behind me. I don't care. Not my problem.
Love it.
Well, if you're ever in the Lindenwold, New Jersey area, we would implore you to stop by and visit us. It would be.
I would love it. I love seeing other businesses.
Yeah, you've got an open invitation, and then and if we're in.
I appreciate it so much. I really love talking about anything about this business. So sorry we went long, but I said, hey, put me on and I'll start rambling.
Yeah, the pleasure was all ours. Thank you for taking all the time. I really appreciate that, and Mark appreciates it.
Look, we'll catch up soon, Reg. We appreciate your time. Great job. Great journey you're on.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. You guys take care. Have a good one.
Good luck going forward. Take care.
Take care. Thanks.